Hello everybody, Jake, your resident content cowboy here. Yeehaw. I want to get right into it. I got to do this tier list with 3 members of Team Blossom, Rin, Mike Spam, and Faz. They were very nice to sit down with me for far too long. I took up too much of their time, but it is a full competitive tier list broken down. I hope you enjoy it. Big thanks to Team Blossom. All right, I am joined by the March Finals champions and of course champions of many other tournaments, the incredible Team Blossom. I am here with Rin. Hi, Rin. I am here with Mike Spam. Hello, Mike.
Hello.
And Faz. How you doing?
Hello, hello.
You guys obviously are crushing it right now. Congratulations on all your incredible success inside Pokemon Unite. You are, I guess, the favorite team right now, right? Heading into the AOS Cup, you're the most recent winners of the March Finals. And I would say the meta hasn't changed too much, really. We just saw a shift with Duraludon a bit, and that's kind of been the biggest change, right?
I think
There's
so,
been
yeah.
some stuff.
I am so thankful that you all joined me for this. I want to put together a competitive tier list, and who better to have than one of the best teams in Unite. So our categories for today, I usually have dumb names for all of them, but I knew that it would make Team Blossom furious. So our tiers are the S tier, the A tier, the B tier, still got the B tier, the C tier, and the D tier. I thought a cool way to do this would just be to kind of move through the roles of different Pokemon. We could talk about where we like to see them in the game, where they might be seen competitively, and then we can argue a little bit if we all disagree on some of the placement. I will, of course, defer to the professional players on Team Blossom when they disagree with me, but let's get it started here. I'd like to kick it off. Absol is our first Pokemon. It's a Speedster. I'll start talking about Speedsters. Why not? So the first Speedster, let's start with Zeraora. I think Zeraora is either C or D tier competitively. I can't wait for someone to argue with me, but my thought is Zeraora gets its Unite move so late. Its leveling system is like the worst in the game, and outside of that, its discharge has been nerfed. It's maybe D is too harsh, but I just can't think of many places to put Zeraora. So I'd say C or D competitively. What do you guys think?
Honestly, like for Zera, the only niche I see for him is Wild Charge destroying Venusaur. Outside of that, I don't think you can really see any play. Like in team fights, he's too hard to play because you can just buddy barrier and destroy him. Obviously, you said he takes forever to scale, so he has to go jungle. But then by going jungle, you're making it so at Dreadnought, you kind of screw over your team because you're not going to get your ults, whereas most carries can get their ults from the jungle. And so there's not really much of a reason to pick Zera right now. Yeah,
that's kind of how I'm feeling as well. It just seems like Greninja or Cinderace, Talonflame, whatever, you will have your Unite move at 9. Zeraora you won't, so you have a higher chance of losing Dread. What do you think, Mike and Faz?
I think you're being too generous. I feel like he's a hard D tier character.
Whoa! Too generous!
I don't think he's D tier. We've whipped him out at scrims before. He wasn't terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's also because we're us. And imagine if you weren't us. I think you'd have a little bit harder of a time.
That's true.
Yeah,
we
I
should
don't think
have
it's all useless, though.
we should
That's
have
the
2
issue.
competing tier lists for if you are Blossom and if you're not Blossom. If you're not Blossom, it's D tier, but if you're Rin, it can be at least C tier. Maybe we should have something like that.
Yeah, we need Rin to have his own tier list. But yeah, like you guys touched on, like with the buddy usage from most teams, it's very tough for Zora to get value. Him getting ult at 10 is also like really detrimental just to the game state, with Dread 1 being so important and most jugglers being able to hit 9. So it's like, where do you put him? 2? I can honestly see him in D. I think C is fair. But even if they made his ult 9, I don't even think he would be like A. Like, I still think he would be B or C just because he died so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can keep him C for now. I'm also not opposed to D. It's one of the Pokemon that I talk about so often that really at least shift his levels down. It just makes no sense that every other Pokemon got their leveling shifted down except Zeraora. But I guess for the time being, we can have it hang out in C. And why don't you talk about the next, any one of the remaining Speedsters, Faz?
I think Talonflame is probably the best speedster in the game. Definitely A or S tier. Rin could probably touch on it more because he's our speedster / jungle player.
Yeah, so I think Talonflame is very strong right now. It's very good into pretty much every single jungler. Like, it's a good blind pick. It can synergize very well with a lot of your characters. You can completely forgo jungle farming and just give it to like one of your attackers as well. So that's another neat synergy it has. I think Talonflame is really strong. I would probably put him in S tier, personally.
That's awesome. And I'd love to hear from Mike as well. But to throw in my 2 cents, it's my favorite speedster to play. I mean, it feels like the only speedster that has a lot of competitive viability. It deletes a lot of the squishier characters. It can be played in score comps with Fly. It can be played with the Brave Bird build. It has a lot of variety. I think Talon's pretty amazing right now. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, and the fact that you can take fights at timings that other junglers can't is just very, very strong. And we've seen a lot of teams we play against just be surprised by the fact that, oh, our Talonflame at 30% HP is turning around on your carry, and your carry just disappears now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I agree. It's one of my favorites. So we can leave that S or A for the time being. Mike, why don't you talk about one of the remaining 2 speedsters, either Absol or Gengar?
Yeah, take Gengar just because funny jokes inside the scene. I think Gengar right now is probably a C tier pick. We've seen some Gengars not look terrible on the champion when running at bot lane as an attacker, but it still doesn't look too strong. It's just one of those picks where if you haven't played against Gengar recently, and most people, let's be honest, have not, it can surprise you with its damage, it can surprise you with its burst. But then once you remember, oh hey, it's a Gengar, this is what its burst threshold looks like, it just very quickly runs out of steam.
Yeah, Rin, I know that this might be a role you would take if you were to put Gengar into your team composition. Where do you think it falls? Does C seem fair?
I think it would probably be played best attacker because you're kind of useless at first Bs if you play it as a jungler. And I mean, if you're useless at first Bs, you pretty much concede first tread, which is really bad. So I'd put it in C tier as well. I actually think it's underrated as an attacker, but I don't think it's good.
Interesting. What do you think, Faz?
There's a special place in my heart for Gengar just because I played the game very early on when you could get reset on Hex and just 1v5, and I thought that was like one of the coolest parts of the game that they obviously took out for good reason. But I definitely think he's C now, and like Ren said, it's very tough to play him in jungle. Maybe he has viability as attacker, but it's still really tough for him to get any farm or him to not just die to the triple lane.
Yeah, I mean, that makes total sense. I hadn't even thought about playing him in path competitively, right? I mean, of course, when you think about Gengar, I think the game wants you to think of all speedsters as something that would be heading into the central area, but it doesn't mean that they have to. And yeah, Gengar it's one of those Pokemon that feels really cool when you're snowballing with it because you can chain, an amazing 5 KO on the enemy team. And in some ways, once you kind of get going, it's actually not too tough once you delete a couple enemies on the enemy team. But yeah, I can't imagine how tough it might be playing that in that bottom path there. Rin, what do you think about Absol?
Oh, there's a Japanese team currently playing Absol. Their name is Secret Ship. They played it during AOS Cup. I don't think it's amazing, though. I'd probably put it in either low B or high C.
Okay.
So I think the one cool thing about Absol is you can split jungle buffs with one of your carries. So you can give them one of your buffs, you can take the other, and then you can go to lane, which is what Secret Ship was doing. But even then, I think Absol is just like I think that strategy is just mediocre, and this is just standard 1-1-3.
Yeah, Absol's a weird one, right? I mean, it actually, thinking of a Pokemon that plays in path kind of well, in the bottom path, it doesn't have the range that Gengar has on any of its moves, but playing it solo, you actually get a good amount of value seeing this Pokemon in lane. It's fine. It doesn't have to evolve. You get your 5 pretty quick and you're pretty brutal. But yeah, when I see it competitively, I've only seen it on that Team Secret Ship, and it's always cool to see Absol. It's one of those Pokemon that I think everyone wants to see more, but I feel like no one's really cracked the code as to how to use this in a competitive setting. Mike, Faz, any thoughts?
Yeah, it's just, he's rough. Like, every time I see him, I'm like, oh, what you did was cool, but you didn't do enough damage to burst someone to 0, and you were flashy, but that's about it. So it's like, the Pokemon looks cool and it has cool effects, but it's not what we're looking for out of a competitive pick.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Absol, unfortunately, just a lot of the speedsters seem to suffer from not only the fact that they aren't Talonflame, if you're just comparing them directly to another speedster, but also a lot of these Pokemon you might think would head into the center area, that jungle, and if they are heading there, that means they're running up against another Pokemon that could probably use a lot of that experience better. Obviously, you were just talking about how you guys play sort of the classic North American 1-1-3 meta. We are starting to see some teams attempt this split, and splitting their buffs and heading into top and bottom path. I'm curious to see if that will help any of these Pokemon get some more play, but I doubt we'll see a lot of that here in the AOS Cup, at least in North America. Speaking of other Pokemon that would do well maybe in that central area, let's start going through our attackers here, and I'll start with an easy one. Why not? I think Cinderace is the first one here on our list, and I think Cinderace is still an S tier Pokemon. I think for a little while, Duraludon kind of took its throne just because it could secure objectives like no one else, almost like when Dragonite came out. But I think Cinderace is still unbelievable. It shreds tanks. I kind of love Cinderace all the time. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. Maybe you're starting with you, Rin. I know you might be playing a Pokemon like this.
I'd either put Cinderace in high B or low A tier.
Whoa! I love it!
Amazing.
Okay. Tell me why you think Cinderace is a little worse than maybe it used to be, because it used to feel like a pretty big staple pick for a lot of central area teams.
I feel like attacker meta shifting more towards Ninetales kind of hurts him a little bit, because I don't think he can like just straight up beat a Ninetales and it would get CC'd really hard in fights. His ult is actually really trash outside of securing objectives. His early game is really mediocre. Like Blaze Kick until you get the attack speed buff is pretty bad. Obviously Pyro Ball is better, but you have to go Blaze Kick because you need the scaling. I think a lot of the current junglers can just straight up beat him in the first Dread fight, so you're playing at a disadvantage there, so you have to come back from that. I don't know. It feels really hard to play first Dread with him, I guess.
Yeah. So there we go. Either high B, low A. What do you think, Mike?
Adding on to what Rin said, because of how stable this meta's been, a lot of junglers have had more time to try out more picks, and I won't spoil some of the spicy stuff we got coming down the line, but a lot of things that on paper you would be like, I think this is good into Cinderace, but this Mon isn't playable. Well, it turns out that Mon actually might be playable, and so a lot of bad matchups for Cinder are just more and more common as time has gone on.
Interesting. Mike?
Or Faz.
Oh, Faz,
me,
sorry.
yeah.
My brain wasn't working. Mike,
Yeah,
say that all again, please.
Yeah, can do.
What I was gonna say is, like they said, is just there's a lot of Pokemon right now that are good in the jungle that are not good matchups for Cinderace, and you know, Cinderace might look like it could carry, especially with later on we're probably going to talk about Blissey being more of a character people are playing competitively, but there's just a lot of good characters against Blissey, and like Rin said, with A9 being the default as the attacker usually, and him not being able to win that 1v1, it's really tough to justify Cinderace, I think.
Wow, that's really cool to get your guys' insight on this, because I love Cinder. I still feel like it's super powerful, but I am seeing more teams shift off of Cinder to a few notable Pokemon, and we can talk about maybe one of them here in a sec. Rin, what's another attacker you would like to place on our list? You could go with kind of this AD carry sort of role, or anyone that's an attacker.
I'd place Cramorant in D tier.
What?
That character is awful.
Just because of the recent nerf to Air Slash?
Yeah, the Air Slash nerf. That was what kicked him out of
That's what did it.
I can't believe it. That 2 seconds, it really hurt Cramorant. I mean,
Hey,
this
they buffed
Pokemon.
dive, though.
That's true. This is a sad one, isn't it? I don't know what they're doing with this Pokemon, but it has been bad for a very long time. It was kind of viable for a little while when the game first came out, and it feels like they hate this Pokemon. I'm just so confused.
I think it just got hard power crap. Like, when Cramorant came out, we didn't have like characters like Hoopa, where you could just like reset after he pokes you and then come back and kill him. Or just like trick all of his damage and then kill him because he has no longevity or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Also,
I think
just
Cramorant is just bad.
looking at the history of attacker, a lot of attackers have got more love. Like, Pikachu wasn't really a viable character, and now it's one of the best characters in the game because of its ult cooldown and just the buffs to its abilities. You look at a character like A9, and obviously A9 replaced Cramorant back in the day, even when Cramorant was probably at its best state, and now A9 fell out of the meta, but then got a bunch of love with Aurora Veil, and now she's back in the meta. With Cram, they haven't really touched it or looked at it or cared. Like we're saying, like, I don't know what they're doing with the Pokemon either.
Well, that's
Even
not true.
Venu.
They have touched it. They did nerf its Air Slash. I don't know why we keep forgetting that they have had to nerf this Pokemon. It was getting too powerful. What do you think, Mike?
Even Venu, they gave a bunch of love to, so it's just weird.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, one, I will say good riddance. I absolutely despise playing against Cramorant. If I never have to see that Pokemon again, I won't be sad. But yeah, one thing that also hurt Cramorant is people have gotten smarter. And a lot of the Cramorant power came from people just being surprised by Surf Whirlpool. It's like, well, maybe we shouldn't have gotten hit by the Cramorant that we called was in the brush 30 seconds ago. Once that stopped happening, the Pokemon got, like, nerfed by people's brains, too, which hasn't helped. But it just makes it all the more confusing why it hasn't seen its numbers adjusted.
That makes a lot of sense too, because it had that moment. It's kind of gotten so many just head scratching nerfs. Also, it had its Unite move nerfed at one point. So I remember there was a time when it used its Unite, and you kind of used to think, "Oh man, we got to get out of here." And now it uses its Unite, and you think, "Oh yeah, we got to jump on that and KO it right away because it's completely useless." It's just a really bizarre Pokemon, and I totally agree. It hangs out there in the D tier. Mike, why don't you give us another attacker?
Yeah, let's go to the A9, which is going to be our second S tier pick.
Ooh.
A9 is just beyond broken right now. Just, if you're not running A9, you're not winning the game. That's how it feels. Like, you can put it jungle, you can put it attacker, it excels in both roles. As long as you have that Veil, and you have the Dazzling Gleam, A9 will carry fights.
I think that's so interesting that it just a slight shift, and it really speaks to how delicate they have to be with some of the balance in this game. Just a slight shift, they change the way Aurora Veil works a little bit, and all of a sudden, Ninetales is amazing. I'm sure you guys saw the winner of the Japanese AOS Cup have that kind of split central area where A9 went top with Hoopa. That was very cool to see. I think it's opening up a lot of interesting strategies. And I guess from what you're saying, we're probably going to see this Pokemon used by most teams in the attacker role in that 1-1-3 meta.
Almost certainly.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Rin?
I think the only time A9 isn't run, even in this comp it can be run, is with triple support bot. But even then you can just throw it in the jungle. I think A9 is run in most comps. I agree with Mike.
Yeah. Faz, any thoughts on A9?
Yeah, the Aurora Veil change was just insane. Like, both the dash, giving it more utility just for yourself, and then the healing for late game, making you almost unkillable, especially if you get support from your Hoopa, if you have a Blissey, anybody's. Like, it just feels really hard to kill. It feels like it does a lot of damage, and it's constantly CCing you. It's just a jack of all trades, and then it has the movement with the Veil now, which it never had before.
What? How about you throw another attacker at us while you're talking about A9?
I was gonna say Decidueye and actually put it A. I think it's sort of like a better Cinderace, where it sort of suffers from the same matchup troubles that Cinderace does, but it has the option of playing at long range as well as playing bot lane, which is something Cinderace can't do.
Yeah, I love Decidueye. I can't believe it finally got good. It's been so bad for so long. It felt like they wanted it to be this Pokemon that shredded everyone with its Razor Leaf, and then they finally made Spirit Shackle this unbelievable sniper move. Decidueye is just such a surprising place in the game right now. It was that hard counter to Duraludon, and famously, your team went up against Team Nemesis in the grand finals, and they were running the Duraludon counter, and then you ended up running sort of I wouldn't say it's necessarily a Decidueye counter, but you started not running Duraludon against them because you knew they were running this Decidueye. It's really cool to see the meta kind of evolve a little bit and have some counterplay to it.
I will say,
it's really exciting stuff.
I was gonna say, I actually don't think Decidueye is A tier. I think it's actually high C or low B tier.
Whoa, Rin, you're out of your mind.
I agree with Rin here.
What is happening? All right. I'll move it to B, but I'm doing this and I'm furious. I can't believe it would be B. Go ahead. Tell
So
me a little bit about it.
I don't think. Well, for starters, depending on how we're defining the tiers, I don't think Decidueye is more viable than Cinderace. I think I could plug Cinderace into most teams and be happy. I don't think I can do the same with Decidueye.
Interesting.
But on top of that, I feel like a lot of the characters that are meta right now kind of hard screw over Decidueye, and I think he's really weak at first red. If you're on him jungle, you're losing first B's top. If you're on him attacker, he probably shouldn't hit 7 because his bot lane isn't that strong until he hits 7. And then once he hits 7, you like let's say you're playing a Talonflame or something, you just kill him.
So you think part of the biggest issue is there isn't a good place for this Pokemon, and then outside of that, you've got obviously Talon. Some teams might be running Blastoise, which is a really nice counter to it. So yeah, I guess there are some ways to shut this Pokemon down. I just have so much love for it, but I guess that's what happens with Decidueye. We ended up doing it dirty. Who was the last one? Faz, you were the last one to give us one. Rin, do you want to give us another attacker?
Yeah, let's talk about my boy Greninja.
Ooh.
I don't know if I would put him in A or S tier. Greninja's super strong. I guess just put him in A for now.
Mm-hmm.
I think Greninja has a very good matchup spread. I think his biggest weakness is first Bs is really bad. But outside of that, he's strong throughout the whole game. He's pretty hard to kill if piloted properly, though he is extremely difficult to play. One of the hardest ones in the game.
I love to hear you say that because I have said that a bunch, and I know it's not just that I'm not good with Greninja. It is one of the hardest to play in the game. See, I knew it.
The one weird thing about Greninja is for some reason they decided to make his ult cooldown like 30 seconds longer than every other character in the game. I don't know why they did that, but you only get like at most 2 ults off in a game. It's really dumb.
I think his Unite move is unbelievable, though. I feel like Greninja's Unite move just sets up a ton of, team wipes, more than many other characters. As soon as Greninja throws that and then gets next to everyone, its basic attack shreds people at low HP, its surf resets. Like, Greninja has such an amazing combo with its Unite move. Much better than, 2 other Pokemon we're looking at here, Cinderace and Decidueye, whose Unite moves are both pretty underwhelming at times. So it's not surprising that you would say he's A, and not surprising that we're seeing so much Greninja. I feel like we're seeing so much more Greninja than we were previously. And it's interesting because things have shifted inside the game, but the stats on Greninja and Cinderace haven't changed at all. It's just what we're going up against that's changed them. Faz, what do you think about Greninja?
I think Greninja is really strong right now, but I think what we didn't touch on is how good it is with Trick, and Trick's obviously a huge part of this meta, and Hoopa's obviously probably S plus. Like, it's the best character in the game, I think.
That's a spoiler.
Trick,
I'm gonna cut that out.
Yeah.
S is just, yeah. I don't know. I think it's just so good with Trick, and it makes it even more impossible to kill. So he gets the healing from Surf. He's impossible to kill because he just dashes away in smoke screens, and then he heals from Trick. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, I would feel comfortable putting Greninja S. I'm not sure how Rin feels about it, if he'd want to bump him up there, but like, when we pick Greninja, I feel like the game is ours to lose. Like, as long as we're not making game-losing throws, we're just gonna have a way to win, because Greninja is just that strong. And the scariest part about Greninja is that he can just play on the outside of the fight, just throw in those autos, and he doesn't have to engage until it's good for Greninja, and then all of a sudden, like you said, bam, 4 people dead after an ult.
Yeah.
Just scary Pokemon.
It is really scary, and it's one of those interesting Pokemon. It reminds me a little bit of Aegislash. Not exactly, because Aegislash obviously has no range, but it's almost that feeling of when do I go in, when do I go in? You're kind of dancing a little bit, and then all of a sudden that Pokemon moves in and gets a ton of KOs. Greninja is really, really impressive right now. I'd like to throw an attacker out here, and I'd love to hear your everyone's thoughts. Sylveon, one of my favorite characters in the game. I think it was over nerfed. I think C might be kind. I don't see anyone running this Pokemon, and I don't see a lot of situations that it works well in. It's pretty good early. At level 4, it's annoying. Hyper Voice is pretty sweet, but after that, I don't think it's that great. I would say it's maybe C tier. It could be even worse, but I'd love to hear your all thoughts.
So I actually think Sylveon is best played in the jungle, better than in attacker role, just because when you clear your first buff on Sylveon, you instantly get Hyper Voice. You can run straight top, and then you can deny the enemy Lucario level 5, so we have an advantage of first Bs. But her main disadvantage is that her ult is really bad. Even if you get it at level 8 Dread or whatever, it doesn't have too much of an impact in the fight. It has a really long cooldown, which is kind of bad as a jungler because you can't use it constantly around the map like you can with someone like Talonflame. And then Hyper Voice is pretty easy to dodge, which is kind of lame too.
Yeah, it is really dodgeable, which is so unfortunate. And then I kind of feel like, I remember this Pokemon came out and it was overpowered, but I kind of think they're testing a lot of these Pokemon before they are all released. So they have 10 Pokemon right now that are in their game being tested all against each other. I think when they were testing Sylveon against maybe some other things that they were working on, they didn't think it was as overpowered as it would have been on release. I bet if they could now, they would like to take back some of that nerf. Maybe they don't care, but I think they should take back some of that nerf. It just feels a little over nerfed. What do you think, Faz?
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Like, I think Hyper Voice is obviously super good early, and that's why getting it as fast as possible in the jungle makes sense. I do think, like we touched on, she has the worst ult in the game, maybe, and that's something that is definitely probably a reason you don't see her as much. The ultimate, not only is it a long cooldown, even though you get it at 8, it feels really bad to use and doesn't do much when you do press it.
Yeah. Mike?
Yeah, agreeing with what everyone said. Even when we get ganked by, like, the level 8 Sylveon coming down with ult, we're like, okay, we're just gonna back up. And that's just it. She's still extremely vulnerable to CC. And then once you get your jungler to match her in level, or get level 9 and then you have your jungler's ult, Sylveon just sort of feels like a caster minion.
Yeah, it's not very good. I think it's unfortunate because I really like this Pokemon. I just don't feel like it fits. Yeah, it doesn't feel like it fits at all. Mike, why don't you give us another attacker?
Yeah, let's talk about, I don't know, how about Venusaur?
Ooh.
I think Venusaur is the B-est tier of all B tiers right now.
Okay, I might be able to add that. Go ahead, tell me about it.
So, Venusaur to me feels like the baseline character which everything else is judged around. Whereas, like, if you're less effective than Venusaur in bot lane, should never be played. If you're more effective than Venusaur in bot lane, you always want to play that more than Venusaur. Because Venusaur takes a lot of resources to get rolling, right? You're not really doing anything until you have Petal Dance, which takes level 7. But then, your ult really isn't that exciting. So, it makes sense to put it in the attacker role. And he needs help, because if you don't have multiple supports around him, he doesn't get to become the unkillable god that we've all seen those really annoying Venusaurs be. But then, even when you can achieve that, those resources, if they were put towards someone scarier, probably are going to accomplish more. And so, we've seen teams pick out the Venusaur and do just fine, but the entire time I'm thinking, you could be accomplishing more with a different character, which is why I say he's B.
Wow. Most B, actually. What do you think, Rin?
Actually, I think I agree with him. So when I think of Venusaur, I think he's just kind of there. So he's really strong if he can scale, but realistically, you should probably lose the early game if you're playing it into either Pikachu or Ninetales, who are the standard attackers right now. I think if he can get ahead, he can do a lot, but I don't see universes where Venusaur should really be getting ahead. His first Dread isn't that good, so you have to rely on your team doing it, so you're not having an impact there. If you're behind the enemy, well, you can just get deleted before you even hit level 13. You can like barely hit 13 before Zap, and the enemy's like 14, 15 already, and they have a massive advantage from that alone. One thing he is good at, obviously, he's pretty decent in like Protect the President comps. Or if he's going into Protect the President comps, I think he can be really good too, because he can lifesteal off of a lot of the supports there.
Yeah, and for people who don't know, tell us a little bit about the Protect the President comp. This is when you take a Pokemon like Venusaur and you put a Blissey or something near it, and you make sure it lives forever while it continues to heal and such.
Yeah, so your goal in the Protect the President comp, you want like a really, really good hyper carry. So like a character that can do a lot if you give it a lot of resources. So a Venusaur, right? If he hits high level, and he can just sit there and he can just constantly stay in the fight and heal. So then you put characters that are good with that, like characters that heal you, like Hoopa with Trick, or characters that give you unstoppable like Blissey and also move speed and help you with the ult or whatever, and you just funnel all the resources into the Venusaur and have the Venusaur carry you. Or whatever the carry, or whatever the pick is, rather.
Sure. And Faz, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like we touched on, it just takes a lot to get going. It's probably the most reliant on resources in the game, and if you don't get those resources, it feels really bad, and the entire team is then sacrificing its own resources trying to get you back in the game. So it's very reliant on teammates, like we said. It doesn't do anything in first dread, doesn't do anything really in lane when it is that attacker if it's not jungle. I do think, like we said, the only viability is in the Protect the President, VIP, whatever we want to call it, comp, where you're just dropping 2 or 3 supports on it and praying that it carries you. But still, there's better characters, I think.
Why don't you hit me with a better character? A better attacker. Ooh.
Duraludon.
Where do you want to put Duraludon?
I think it's A. I think it's right where Greninja is right now. I think its burst damage is still really good. Its ult, I still think, is ridiculous. And Dragonlance can be really good at, like, stopping, any dive that gets to you, like a Luca or something.
Dragon Tail.
Dragon Tail, sorry, yeah.
Oh, right, yeah, so you can back up with it. So you wouldn't be running Stealth Rock, you think, if you were using it competitively, you'd keep that mobility with Dragon Tail?
It depends on the enemy team comp. So if they're like playing heavy dive, like they have a Lucario and a Greninja, I'd probably go Dragon Tail. But if they're playing more of a range comp, like they have a Decidueye or something, I'd probably run Stealth Rocks. It just depends on the enemy.
So for your team, I mean, looking between Greninja and Duraludon, obviously you guys don't need to give out any secret strategies or anything like that if you don't want to, but what considerations would be made as to which one you would be running, I guess?
I think right now, whatever jungler you end up running is mainly decided by what the enemy team is going to run or what you think they're going to run. So, like, if a team is going to play Decidueye, right, I'm probably going to not play Duraludon because Duraludon is pretty weak to Decidueye. Mm-hmm. But if I don't think a team is going to play Decidueye and I think they're going to play, like, maybe, I don't know, Protect the President or something, maybe Duraludon is pretty good into that.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I'm not surprised to see this Pokemon still doing very well. It got nerfed, but it wasn't, the end of the world. I do think it's interesting how something slight happens in the game and then all of a sudden this Pokemon that was quite overpowered falls off instantly. You saw it in every single game on both teams for as long as it was not nerfed, and then the second it gets nerfed, I barely see this Pokemon anymore, which I think is really interesting.
Here's my hot take on that. People got bored of playing Duraludon, and the nerf didn't do as much as you would think based off the play rate, but every jungler just hated being on Duraludon every single game, and so the nerf gave them an excuse to stop playing it. But then over time, junglers started trying it more and more, and we're like, oh hey, this character is still really good.
That makes sense. I mean, it's not the most exciting character to play. I mean, Talonflame, I feel like, is, again, one of my favorite characters to play. I think it's super exciting. And Duraludon reminds me a lot of Dragonite. You're just setting something up, you're tapping your A button, and then there's a super secret thing where you kind of hit the right bumper and things go away. So it's not as exciting, maybe, as some of the other characters. That makes sense. I could kind of see people getting a little bored of it. And then the nerf maybe scaring someone away. Rin, why don't you hit us with another attacker? We only have one left, maybe? Pikachu? Oh, no,
Gardevoir
two.
The only
Gardevoir.
attacker?
Gardevoir and Pikachu.
Oh. Alright, I'll take Gardevoir, I guess. I think Gardevoir... Ooh. Oh, this is a hard one, honestly. It's like, it could be anywhere between B or C tier. I don't know. I almost want to put it in Venusaur tier.
The most B tier? Interesting. All right. So it's
Yeah.
the Pokemon. It's in the most B tier. I didn't think 2 could ever make it to this tier, but it does make sense that 2 are here right now. Tell me your thoughts on Gardevoir. I'll say right now, and I could be wrong, I feel like because of Decidueye, Gardevoir just feels super underwhelming. It feels like it kind of lost one of the most special things about it, which was its crazy range. But tell me your thoughts on Gardevoir.
So I think Gardevoir and Decidueye are good into different team comps. I think Decidueye is good into squishy, immobile team comps, and I think Gardevoir is really good into super tanky team comps. So like Gardevoir excels at killing things like Trevenant, for example, or Mamoswine, or Wiggly, right? But Decidueye excels at killing things like Duraludon. That's not Gardevoir's forte.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think the reason why I put Gardevoir so... Well, I guess it's like middling, not low. It's just because I think a lot of the meta junglers right now counter her. But I do think she is pretty strong. I will say, though, I think a lot of people get baited by her ult. Her ult is not good. It's, like, below average, I think.
I agree. It's very telegraphed. I mean, you really know when it's coming. There are a few characters like Blastoise might have the most telegraphed Unite move in the entire game, but it's really telegraphed. You know what Gardevoir is about to do, and you just have to not get caught in it. And it feels like it even gives you a second to go, hey, you can actually move out of the way if you want. So it's kind of a weird Unite move in that respect. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, we're gonna be playing against a lot of Gardevoir, we think, in our AOS Cup group, because Foreign Famous loves to run it. So it's not an unplayable pick by any means. It's just one of those picks where, like, most of the time when we lose to it, we never feel like we lost to the Gardevoir. We lost to 10 other problems we had that allowed the Gardevoir to succeed.
That makes sense. Faz?
Yeah, like, I actually agree with it being with Video because I feel like it's a similar character where you do require a lot of resources and a lot of your team's help to, like, get going. Even in team fights, like, you have to be peeled pretty hard because when anyone gets to you, you have no mobility. Obviously, you have a stun and possibly a slow depending on what you take. But still, like, you just want your whole team to stand in front of you and you attempt to do damage, which might not be possible in the current meta with how good, Greninja and Talonflame are at getting to that Pokemon. But I agree that it should be with Video at least because it requires the resources and because it can carry with those resources if given.
Mike, why don't you tell us where we think Pikachu should be?
Pikachu's A tier.
A tier. Take that, Pikachu. Ninetales took your spot. Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, Pikachu still does a lot of really scary damage early game. And maybe the mid game and the late game aren't where it used to be, but here's this Pokemon who's a massive lane bully, who is going to win trades every single time, is really powerful. And most teams, frankly, aren't at a point where they can capitalize off that, but we've gotten, mostly our own fault, but we've gotten into some lane states that have been pretty scary against Pikachu, where we've gotten pretty far behind. And we're able to come back just because we're awesome, go us. But if we were on the Pikachu, I don't think other teams could come back, and all of a sudden, hey, we've got a level 6.5 Pikachu and your attacker's level 4 at Dread. That can be pretty scary to deal with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is the biggest reason the difference between Ninetales and Pikachu, is it just because of Aurora Veil? Is it because of that healing? Is it because of its CC? Like, what do you think the biggest difference is separating the two? Because Pikachu's Unite, it doesn't have the secure Ninetales does, but it happens all the time. It feels a lot better. So it does have some exciting stuff going on, but it really is getting outpicked by Ninetales in every team.
Yeah, so for Pikachu to succeed, it has to get ahead and then stay ahead. And it's that staying ahead part that's really difficult. Because you have to be ulting as soon as you get it, otherwise that's one of the big advantages of the champion con. And if you don't have those opportunities, okay, well maybe we should have had Ninetales, who can do more when she's not ulting, and is scarier when we get to late game. And if you ever get to where you're just even with the Ninetales, the Ninetales is ahead. And so that's why we're always looking to the Ninetales, because our Ninetales is going to be even or ahead, and we're making that Pikachu worthless. Now, for a lot of teams, in a lot of matchups, they can still play that Pikachu, because they're going to get ahead, and maybe the enemy Ninetales isn't good enough to catch back up. But when you're at the top echelons of competitive play, that's not something you can count on, and so you just look to the A9 over the Pikachu.
What do you think, guys? Is that about right for Pikachu? A tier?
I think so. I think it's pretty hard for Pikachu to actually pick up kills on people, especially with like Blissey rising in popularity and with Hoopa existing and being very not balanced. I think Ninetales is like a good mix between Venusaur and Pikachu, where you have a really good early game still on Ninetales. It's one of the best in the game. But then you also scale extremely well too. Like your late game is almost as good as Venusaur's is. You can play Protect the President with Ninetales and it'll work out extremely well.
Nice.
Yeah, I agree with that, where it's like, A9's just too good at both stages of the game, while Pikachu excels at that, in lane, of course, and then, after you get maybe an ult or maybe even a second ult because that cooldown's so low. But in Zap Fight, the ult doesn't do much. The strength of the Zap Fight for Pikachu is actually getting another ult and delaying the fight. Like, you ult to begin the Zap, like, the first 2 minutes, and then you ult again maybe at 1 minute, or to defend your tower if Zap's gone. But A9 is just good at late game without any ultimate, and just because of the autos, and fits the meta a bit more, where there are these characters that are trying to kill you at all stages of the game, and Pikachu can't really defend himself without ulti. So yeah, outside of Zap, I think A9's just better, and Pikachu excels in the early game, and that's why A9 gets S and Pika gets A.
So, Rin, why don't you take our next Pokemon? It can be any role, and then we'll hang out in that role. We have all-rounders, defenders, and supporters here.
Let's do a boring one. I'll do Lucario. That character goes S tier.
You think? Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Lucario is slightly too good at this. I don't know. He's kind of been there like the whole time. Dude, Lucario is so weird. For some reason, this character has never not been S tier.
Isn't that weird?
Always the best.
I honestly think he needs his own tier. If we can, maybe an S+, I would give to Lucario. The character is just always so good. It's
Actually, here's a question for you, Faz. If you could only have one, Lucario or Hoopa, who would you pick?
I think both of them are just way too strong. I would put both of them there. I don't know.
Yeah, but if you can only have one, well, no.
I think you would have Hoopa because there's there's other Lucario-esque things, right? There's nothing like Hoopa, right?
Boy, I mean, I don't know how many more tiers we can have, but we do now have the most S tier, so we have Lucario up there. I'd have to agree. It's one of those shocking Pokemon that has been good since the game came out, and every time they nerf it, they also go, yeah, but what if we buffed it just a little to offset the nerf? They've never seemed to balance this character at all. We don't really need to talk too long about Lucario, kind of as Rin alluded to. It's just crazy good. It's always been crazy good. I can't imagine what will happen one day when it's not, but yeah, it's incredible S-tier Pokemon. Oh, excuse me, most S-tier Pokemon. How about an all-rounder, Mike?
Let's go with Garchomp.
Ooh.
I think Garchomp is like a solid C tier pick.
Okay.
Because the thing is, Garchomp is one of those Pokemon where everyone seems to want to try and find a way to make it work. I cannot tell you how many conversations I have heard or been a part of people trying to be like, alright guys, I have solved Garchomp, here is the secret tech, Garchomp's S tier now. It's never worked out. Because the thing is, Garchomp, you know the fantasy, right? Where you're the unkillable king, you're just like in everyone's backline with your ult, you're just popping off, you're blowing everyone up. The problem is, it's just way too hard to get there. And I don't know what you fix on the champion to make it so it can start getting to those late game fantasies more often. But man, it just, there's no path for it. It's so hard.
Yeah, it's such an interesting Pokemon because unlike Lucario, this has had a very different experience throughout the game where it has been buffed every single balance patch since this game has come out, and they still haven't found a way to make it super viable. And sometimes I think it's just, you know, the curse of the kit, basically. It's just kind of how this Pokemon behaves. I don't think it's terrible, but I've even seen your team try to run this in a tournament, and it's just hard to win with at times. What do you think, Rin? Because I know this is a Pokemon you play.
Yeah, I think you're talking about when I ran at Jungle, right?
I might, yeah, I think you ran at
Shiny
Jungle, and I can't remember. It might have been the Team Shiny tournament or Shiny League tournament.
Yeah, I think it was Shiny League Finals or whatever.
Yeah.
But we tried to make Garchomp work Jungle. I actually think I almost think it's like Venusaur tier. But I think like Garchomp is a fair character. He's really good at first Bs. If you play him Jungle, you just go top, you're level 5, and you smack the Bs toward your side, and then now the enemy doesn't get to play. And he's very good into specific team comps. But I don't think those team comps are being run right now, so I don't think Garchomp sees too much play. I don't think he's a bad pick, though. Like, I don't think he needs buffs. If anything, I think other characters would need nerfs to be around to his tier, because I think he's a good baseline for power.
That makes sense. Faz, unless you had more thoughts about Garchomp, you could throw an all-rounder at us.
I'm actually gonna say maybe he's most B tier, because I do think he's, when he gets resources, he's quite nice. And just looking at him beside those other characters in C, like Rin said, I just don't know if he looks as bad as those ones, right? Like, I do think he's like a Venu Guardy-esque, where it could just carry you the game sometimes in certain comps. As for another all-rounder,
I mean, I can move it. I can move it to the most B
I
tier.
can move it. Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
guys,
3 characters in there now.
you have to understand that at this point, the most B tier is a very confusing tier.
Well, I think it's like the B tier in each role, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
Uh-huh. That makes sense. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Hit me with the all-rounder, Fast.
This one's gonna be spicy because I know Rid will want to talk about it a lot, but Edgy Slash.
Okay. Where would you like to put it?
I honestly think it's A.
Boy, I love hearing that this Pokemon is up in the A tier. It's interesting because a buddy of mine was running this a lot competitively. Crashy's team was trying Aegislash, and I didn't see a lot of teams trying this Pokemon out, and now I'm seeing more and more teams use it, which I think is really cool because it's just one of the most interesting Pokemon to play in the game. Tell me what you like so much about it.
I think Aegislash. Ooh, I don't want to give away too much because he's kind of like secret tech right now, a bit, right? Teams don't really know how to play it or against it.
Is it? I mean, I don't want you to give away any of your strategy. Also, is it because of how it's boosted attack shred? Is it because of that? Is it because of wide guard? Or I mean, we could just say that you don't want to say. That's fine too.
I guess. I mean, what I can say is he functions fairly similarly to Pikachu, but inside of the jungle instead, where he has an insanely oppressive early game, and you just hard snowball from the early game and you keep the enemy behind the whole time.
Nice. That's awesome. And the build that you would be running with it, I assume most people are running Sacred Sword Wide Guard. Does that seem like the build most people would use?
So in Japan, they ran a Shadow Claw Iron Head, and they ran Potion, actually. But I think that build is terrible. Please don't run it.
All right. Aegislash A tier. Mike, unless you had any objections, you can throw another all-rounder at us.
yeah, I was just gonna say that I expect to see a lot more Aegislash than people expect.
Man,
in AO
that's
stuff.
so exciting. That's just one of those Pokemon. I mean, there are some Pokemon that I feel like have a special place in my heart where I want to see Pokemon like Aegislash, Trevenant, stuff like that. And I think that's so cool that we might see more of it. What's another all-rounder you'd like to put on the list?
Let's go with Azumarill, who I think is a very disappointing C tier.
Oh, a disappointing C tier. If there was more room, I'd add it. But it's going to start getting crazy. So this is the disappointing C tier. Okay.
The worst of C tier, yeah.
The worst of C tier.
Yeah, Azumarill just feels like
Meh.
maybe Timmy was just scared of her power level and they didn't want to put her numbers too high. But it feels like a character where it's like, I can see the fantasy in the kit, right? Like the idea of this Pokemon who excels in 1v1s. And then come late game, you have this giant power boosting ultimate. And if you get on one person, you're destroying them. But even in a team fight, you can succeed. I can see the fantasy, but the kit just doesn't live up to it. And it's like, this is another one where I'm not sure what would need to change. I think it's more nerfs than buffs to her kit. But I don't see any reason you'd run this in a competitive setting, except for maybe you don't have someone who can play Lucario well and you're looking for something to replace you in the top lane.
That's interesting because I don't know if you know this, and I guess this is rumored, but maybe it could be verified. This Pokemon it did have different stats, and then once they released it, its stats were lowered, which I thought was really interesting. When they first found this Pokemon in the data mine, its stats were higher. And I wonder what the situation with that was. It absolutely felt like it could be a game-changing Pokemon. And yeah, it's just fairly underwhelming. I think it's cool that it has a Unite move all the time. It's always got a Unite move, which is nice. I was wondering if we might see it in some type of score comp because of that. But yeah, in general, this is just, feels kind of meh. What do you think, Rin?
I think they need to fix her ult. So for whatever reason, you can just walk out of it. You don't even have to flash. If you have enough move speed, you like pop an X speed or something, you just walk away from it and you don't get hit. It's really stupid. They need to fix that.
Yeah, that is very, very odd. Why don't you give us another all-rounder, Rin?
Let's go with your boy Machamp.
Ooh.
I think Machamp is A tier.
Nice. Tell me about it.
So I think if Lucario ever gets touched again, I think Machamp comes out and rises. I think Machamp can actually do pretty well into Lucario right now. I believe Foreign Famous is demonstrating that. I just think Lucario is better in more situations. The biggest issue with Machamp is his first dread is bad, but if you just like concede first try and scale, he's kind of broken.
Yeah, you're right. Foreign famous Fui plays Machamp in that top path, and he's very, very good. I like it late game more than I like Lucario, but at the same time, I feel like everyone's kind of going crazy on extreme speed Lucario right now. It's still Lucario is still unbelievable. So while Machamp is very good, yes, it does sort of play second fiddle to Lucario. Faz, any thoughts on Machamp?
I like the Pokemon a lot. I think it's one of the coolest Pokemon in the game, especially because it's one of the only Pokemon with a stacking passive, if I believe, with Cross Chop 13. And that makes it so, like, it's scaling higher than most Pokemon, but also, like, it's not that bad in the meta right now. I think it's good versus A9, especially because, you know, you get CC immune and your ult can take her out of Aurora Veil and possibly just kill her, too. Yeah, like we said, if Luca ever gets touched, Machamp is probably going to be a staple in the meta. I think it's super cool. I want to see it in the meta. Its abilities are probably the coolest in the game with, you know, even the other set where you're just like...
They are just a lot of punches, but sure, I mean, I guess they're the coolest.
No, I was going to say, like, the abilities people don't use, I really like Submission. Submission, you know, the old level 5 gank was very cool to me. I always loved his ult. Yeah, I think it's a cool Pokemon.
I totally agree. It used to be one of the scariest things. When the game first came out and it started running out of a bush with submission, you were like, wow, great, I'm dead. This stupid thing is coming at me again. Why don't you hit me with another all-rounder?
What about Dragonite?
What about Dragonite?
I think it's B. I think it's with Cinderace and Decidueye personally. Obviously, it works at a lot of score comps and a lot of the rushed out objective comps. I do think its hyper nerfs got, you know... It definitely toned the Pokemon down from where it was just half-healthing objectives, like, you know, at level 8. But yeah, I do think it's still decent and where I would put Decidueye and Cinderace.
Very nice. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, if you never had to team fight, the Pokemon would be amazing. The problem is that
some teams really do try to avoid it. Those score comp teams say, yeah, we're never going to team fight, so I guess
so.
And
in those situations, it looks great. But otherwise, after you use all your stacks and your Hyper Beam on the objective, you're just out of gas, even if you get it. And when we play against teams that try to run the D-Knight in an actual, like, team fight comp, that's exactly what happens. Even when they get the objective, it's like, okay, you're just, like, out of gas, and we just walk over you now.
Wow, that's so interesting. I hadn't really thought about that. But yeah, I mean, of course, it's amazing at securing objectives, but then it's just still kind of hanging out. What do you think, Ren?
Yeah, I think it pretty much only functions in score comp. And while I think score comp is good, I don't think we'll probably ever really see it in the North American meta at the moment.
Yeah, I think North America has rejected score comp pretty intensely. Why don't you give us next all-rounder, either Zarina or Char? Is there anyone else? I think those two. One of those two.
Well, I am both a Serena and a Charizard enthusiast. I guess we'll start with Charizard, though. I think Charizard's A tier.
Okay. Yeah, I think
Charizard is...
Yeah,
very,
sorry,
very,
go
oh. I was going to say, obviously, like, Charizard is something, I guess, I kind of innovated. Like, I was the first one to ever, like, pull it out in a tournament or whatever and actually show that it was good. And then they buffed it after that, so go Charizard.
Yeah, I mean, that must have been so fortunate for you, because I remember watching you specifically play Char. You kind of figured that character out, and then all of a sudden they made it so much more playable. Being able to move when you're firing Flamethrower and Fire Blast was just unbelievably cool. So sorry to cut you off, but it was interesting to see you really take a shine to this Pokemon, and then all of a sudden the game goes, yeah, now it's even better.
I feel like they're going to do the same thing with Aegislash, but that's besides the point. Charizard is just very strong. He doesn't really have any like hard counters in the game. And I think that's part of what makes him good, especially since the game is blind pick right now. You can just pick Charizard and he's pretty good. The worst part about him is that you can't really help your team when it comes to like flipping. You just have to have like a blue buff auto and prey kind of deal. But outside of that, he's very strong in fights. He can force ults. He's very strong even without his ults, which is a common misconception about Charizard. For some reason, people think that he can only play with his ult. I can 1v1 a Lucario without my ult. And I think that's the definition of a strong character.
Yeah, that makes sense. Mike or Faz, any thoughts on Char?
If it wasn't for the fact that I don't think he's great in every situation, I almost think he's S tier. I think he's an incredibly underrated Pokemon. And we have never picked Charizard and felt like, man, I wish we didn't have the Charizard here. Like, it's just so strong, man.
Yeah, I guess that's a really good way to look at some of these Pokemon that would be considered maybe S or even most S tier. I don't think you'd ever pick Lucario and go, if only we didn't have Lucario, you know? So Charizard does kind of feel like that a little bit. I feel like it does play well into pretty much any enemy. Its Unite move getting canceled might be one of the most heartbreaking things in the game. But yeah, outside of that, I think it's cool. What do you think, Faz?
I was actually just gonna touch on that. Like his ult could get canceled, but that's also part of the charm of the Pokemon. Is if someone ever full heals against you in a 1v1, maybe to get out of your slow or whatever, you can ult that character and get buddy back and get your buddy and get your ult back. Like you can ult intentionally to get it canceled and go to 90% and win a 1v1 against a character like Lucario, or let's say A9 has full heal, stuff like that. And it's actually like, I think that's a huge part of the character people miss, and that's something, you know, that definitely makes the Charizard players better than others, is realizing situations where you can reset the ultimate and get your buddy. And I think it gives buddy to your teammate, right? I'm not too sure. Rin can...
Yeah, it does. It does. It's the same thing with Serena.
Yeah,
wow, that's
so
pretty... I mean, that's glass half full
ridiculous
thinking right there. I hadn't even really thought about it like that. Whenever my Unite gets canceled, I always think, well, that's the worst thing that's ever happened to me. But
At
yeah...
Zapdos, it does feel bad. For sure, if you get your ult canceled at Zapdos and it's not a situation where you have time to, you know, build it back up, it could feel bad. But if you're doing it intentionally and you're doing it in a 1v1, it's actually really nice.
Well, I mean, Rin, you said you were a Serena enthusiast, so I'd like you to lead this conversation for our last all-rounder. Where would you like to put Serena?
Serena feels so bad right now. I almost want to put her in C tier.
I agree with that. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
People are trying
worried
to
you
make
were going to
this
say
not
something higher.
No. So we were watching the Korean AS Cup, and for some reason, they really, really, really like Serena. Like, I think almost every team except for one that I saw ran Serena. And every single time I saw Serena, I was thinking to myself, well, what if this was just like Lucario or Machamp? It would just do so much more. It just, I don't know. I see no appeal to take Serena over Machamp when they fulfill like the same role. They're both like scaling characters, I guess, but Machamp has a better early game and he scales better IMO. So I think Serena's just like completely outclassed.
Yeah, isn't it kind of heartbreaking that they brought this Pokemon in and for a second it was being played in place of Lucario in the top path. We were kind of seeing a new Pokemon that could actually play that role, and then all of a sudden they were like, no, what if we nerfed it? And they were like, actually, what if we nerf it again? Can we nerf it one more time? Yeah, buff stomp. All right, bye. It's weird that they did that because I always think when a Pokemon is getting a lot of play, I know it's going to maybe get touched with a nerf, but I also think it would be healthy for the game every once in a while to go, yeah, the Lucario meta is chill for a while. It's all about Serena right now. However, yeah, I think you guys are right. It's just pretty dang underwhelming right now, unfortunately. It's a C tier. And since I stole your pick there, Faz, how about you hit us with either a defender or supporter of your choice?
I mean, we could do tank since I'm the defender
What about
player.
a Pokemon that does both?
Ooh, all right. I've always thought Greedent was a bit of a supporter and a defender. Where do we want to put it? Yeah, go ahead. You want to talk about Wiggly? Is that who we're talking about, or Blissey?
I was gonna say Blissey. Yeah, you could put Blissey. Blissey does both. I definitely think Blissey is probably S tier because it can play both roles. Because it is so good at keeping the A9 up and helping him is so strong with both A9, Duraludon, Greninja. You know, it's a great meta for Safeguard. The ult is, good with Talonflame. Yeah, it's just really good right now. It's really cool to see.
S tier, Blissey. It is really cool to see because this is a Pokemon, it's one of my favorite Pokemon to play solo, which is just, chaos because you're praying that someone on your team knows what they're doing. Otherwise, you're, following a champ around just while it's farming. But it is really cool to see this Pokemon get so much play. What are your thoughts on it, Mike?
Yeah, Blissey is surprisingly tanky. Like, the fact that you can run Blissey as your defender is just... I didn't think it would work when we first tried it, and I was surprised when it did succeed. It feels really, really tanky. And then you still have the ult. And because you have the support slot opened up, you have the Blissey, and you have the Hoopa. Like, our A9 or our jungler is just really, really hard to kill when we have the Pokemon in there, and we still feel like we have a strong front line. Blissey's insane right now.
Nice.
And if you don't need the AoE cleanse off the Wiggly ult, you always run Blissey. It feels so much stronger.
What do you think, Rin?
I think Blissey's really strong too. As a jungler, especially in A9 meta, I'm like, oh, I have safeguard on me. All right, finally, I can actually engage on this thing. It's like Blissey helps so much with me being able to actually like take out super strong characters right now. Obviously, it helps out Lucario a lot because he doesn't have to pop his full heal. Helps out A9 a lot because most A9s aren't running Flash or whatever, right? So they're kind of screwed over by Wiggly if they don't have safeguard. I just think Blissey's a super strong character, has a lot of good synergies. Have you seen the Talonflame Blissey synergy, by the way? Faz mentioned that earlier.
I don't think I have. I mean, I've seen people use Trick on a fly Talonflame, which I thought was pretty fun. What's the synergy with Talon and Blissey? Just cutting in here to say you are about to see a clip from Twitch where Chris Heroes saw this in action and he's commenting on it, and it's pretty fun because you get to hear Chris say, "What a combo!"
Red spawning now in 10 seconds. Spirit jackets are gonna fly out. Hitting Klaus again. Tiny bit, and there's the Brave Bird. Oh, what a combo! Tiny bit, and there's the Brave Bird. Oh, what a combo!
All right, Rin, why don't you give us another supporter here?
Does mine count as a supporter or defender?
It counts as, I mean, I guess the role is technically supporter, so let's do all the supporter role characters.
All right, I guess we'll do Mime then. I'd probably put Mime in C tier. I don't think he's very good right now. After, I don't even know, did he get nerfed or something?
Yeah,
like,
Confusion did.
That explains it. He just feels so bad. It's like his early game before he hits level 4 is bad, and then level 4 is like the only time in the game where he's actually good. But especially with like Blissey being meta now, you can just safeguard his Confusion. That sounds terrible, actually.
Yeah, it's
and
one
then
of
you
the
lose early game.
It's one of the more confusing nerfs to me. Mime wasn't insanely dominant. I know a lot of teams were kind of running it in score comp, and sometimes I think the game is nerfed from, you know, a different region's perspective sometimes, because I know a lot of Mime was being played in Japan, but they nerfed Confusion, which is confusing, and they did buff Guard Swap, and it has a really cool level 13. It heals a lot actually now, but and they also buff Psychic, which is still terrible. But it's such a confusing Pokemon. I don't know why they wanted it to stop being played, but they were not happy with Mr. Mime, and they kind of gave it the Cramorant treatment a little bit. What do you think, Faz?
I honestly think it could be Cramorant tier. I think it is even worse than all those Pokemon listed. It's rough, I think. It has, you know, big burst, but like, you know, you could just use Decidueye. Like, you could use Decidueye and get the same damage, but not risk that being as your take roll. I mean, it does the same damage as like one Surf. It's just, yeah, I don't know. It's rough. I don't think it's very good with Confusion. I haven't really tried the Guard Swap buff, but maybe that's good in score comp, like we're saying. But yeah, I just don't think it has much viability right now, especially in the meta where characters are hard to kill and you want like consistent damage, as well as there's a lot of CC immunity.
And we haven't even touched on the ult. The ult feels so useless against Wiggly and Blissey, because Wiggly just ults your ult, and then your engage is dead. Or Blissey just safeguards your ult, and your engage is dead. It's so tragic.
It's also a problem where they have it listed as a support, but it's played defender, but it has the stats of a support. Like, I don't know, it doesn't feel tanky, and it doesn't heal. So, like, it honestly feels more of, like, an attacker in my eyes, but, like, it's not even good at that. So it's, like, rough.
All right. I mean, what do you think, Mike? Do we move it down to the D tier? Or do we keep it C?
I think it's D tier.
Whoa. I mean, I really forced that to happen, but I can't believe you said it. All right. Let's talk about another supporter. I mean, I'll just do an easy one here. I think Hoopa is one of the most broken characters in the game.
Not even close.
The game kind of revolves around it. I was shocked to see some teams in the AOS Cup in other regions not running this Pokemon. I just can't imagine not running this Pokemon. Some of the strategy I saw, I loved. Again, I'm talking a lot about the team who won the Japanese AOS Cup because it's just one of the most recent series I watched. And I loved some of their plays where even if they got zapped, they could let their team base and defend against a score comp, and then Hoopa unite them into the enemy base to score. It's just the stuff you can do with this Pokemon is unbelievable. I think it's so incredibly good. I'd love to hear anyone's thoughts on it.
Yeah, is my tiny claim to fame is I get to say I was the first person in NA to play the Trick ball set when everyone else was still on hole. Like, Trick is so absurd in the amount of healing it can give. Like, that's honestly where most of the power in the champion comes from. It's just like, oh, you hit level 10, now whichever carry you put a shield on moves faster and just won't die if they're in a 1v1. Then you have the ult coming in on top. Like, cannot put into words how broken the champion feels.
Yeah, it's incredibly good. I solo queued into Rin the other day, and I was Hoopa, and I thought, oh, this is so nice. I could just put Trick on this on Rin, and he could win the entire match for me. It's so good. And then not only does it make your carry good, but it fires another Shadow Ball. Why? Why is it so good? It's kind of unbelievable. What do you think, Rin?
I think we haven't even talked about the CC on it. Shadow Ball CC is ridiculous. You just get stunned like every 5 seconds. I'm just like, why does this character exist? I don't know. Hoopa is so oppressive.
We didn't even
If
talk
you don't
about
have
its
a-
ult. We haven't even mentioned the ult.
Well, Mike kind of mentioned the ult. Like, the ult is obviously the most broken ult in the game. That thing is ridiculous. You become the best character in the game, and then on top of that, you have a port that anyone on your team can take from any point in the map. So you can go make cross map plays. If you have a Hoopa and the enemy doesn't, you can just like go hard crash top at second dread. You can hard force something. If anyone goes to match you, you Hoopa ult down. Now you're fighting at a numbers advantage. And if they don't go to match you, you get free stuff top, and then you go back down anyway, and you get to go fight a dread. It's really, really stupid.
It truly is. It's so bizarre. Every once in a while, they release a Pokemon that's just so crazy, especially when you think of what Hoopa's Unite does. Like you said, it becomes the best character in the game. You can bring your allies to you, or you can set up plays where your allies at the last minute can come to you and put pressure somewhere else. And meanwhile, you have other Pokemon like Mamoswine, and they're like, its Unite move is it kind of stomps around. It stomps around a little bit. 3 times it stomps around. It's so weird to think that some of these characters are so different. But yeah, I think Hoopa, unbelievable. I don't think anyone would argue it. We have 2 more supporters here. Rin, why don't you tell us either about Eldegoss or Wiggly?
I'll let them take Wiggly. So I'll do Eldegoss. I actually think, so this is going to sound kind of weird. I've been taking a liking to Eldegoss jungle a little bit. I don't think it's better than the current junglers, but it's pretty decent. I'd probably put Eldegoss in B tier.
All right, B tier. So why do you think it's B? It's interesting because it used to be, S for sure. Every team had an Eldegoss. I wonder how much that just changing its, the amount of shields it gives changed it, or if it's just that Hoopa is way more useful.
I think there's a few things that actually kicked Eldegoss out of the meta. I think one of the things is that Hoopa's existence is not fair. But then on top of that, I think like the decline in the gameplay of, say, Cinderace and Greninja, making it so her Leaf Tornado blinds aren't as powerful, kind of helped a lot with that too. Like if you have that blind against, say, a Talonflame, is that really going to help you too much? I don't know. If you have that blind against a Charizard, it literally doesn't do anything because he just ults over you anyway.
What do you
It
think,
just doesn't feel
Faz?
as powerful, I guess.
Yeah, they nerfed Tornado and Cotton Guard when Hoopa was already like getting more playtime, so that was weird.
Yeah.
And they recently buffed the ultimate, so I think it's on like a 20 or 30 second less cooldown, but you're still only ulting twice a game because you can't really farm your ultimate back on a support character. So, I don't know, I definitely agree it's B, but it's just never gonna see play over Hoopa. I don't think it should ever see play over Hoopa. Hoopa does more healing, does more damage, has CC, and the ultimate is just 1,000 times better. So when you're up against that, it's a tough hill to climb for Eldegoss, and the nerfs didn't help.
Now that we've said all the reasons you should never play Eldegoss, I will say, if you're playing triple support bot lane, so like Wiggly, Hoopa, Eldegoss, it looks fine. Like, it's not an unplayable character. That's why it's in B. Like, there are still comps that make it work, and so it's by no means unplayable. It just is not. If you're looking for a support and you haven't picked Hoopa somewhere else, you have to pick Hoopa over it.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Who wants to take Wiggly?
I can take Wiggly.
All right.
You play
de-
Wiggly, so I
yeah.
hope so.
I think it's S tier. It's right with Blissey, where it's sort of different from Blissey, where yeah, you have the big support shield, but it's a gauge, and its ability to zone and take space is just incredible, and it really does something no other defender can do. I know it's classified as a support, but it is obviously the best defender right now. And yeah, it's a support with a tanky kit. It's pretty sick.
Yeah, I love Wiggly. One of my favorite Pokemon. It's so mean. Its passive is so mean. Its Unite move is incredible. Sing is gross. So yeah, it's a super, super cruel Pokemon. What do you think, Rin?
I hate Q-Charm. Remove it from the game.
Yeah, buddy of mine, Lush, also hates Q-Charm. It's the number one thing he complains about is Q-Charm, and of course Lucario never getting nerfed. But it's, I think Wiggly is just so unbelievably good. It's a Pokemon that I have been championing for a while. I remember when it started creeping its way into the meta. I love it. But at the same time, I don't have to play against it. I just get to watch people have to deal with this Pokemon most of the time. Mike, any thoughts on Wiggly, or do you want to hit us with a defender here?
I will hit you with a defender, and I'm
Ooh.
gonna say, let's go to Greedent, who I think might be S tier.
Ooh,
That's my hot
interesting. I love this hot take, by the way, and I would love to hear from your teammates as well, and of course your reasoning. I think this character is S tier with a bullet. It's been S tier forever. It's one of the most unique characters in the game. It does crazy stuff everywhere. I absolutely love Greedent, but tell me your thoughts on Greedent.
I agree with everything you just said. I think it can go top. I think it can go defender. I think it's an incredibly obnoxious pick, and I think the biggest thing holding it back from seeing more play is that people in NA specifically, no one wants to be seen as a Greedent player. Because that's considered a dirty thing, and you're the annoying Greedent player, and you're not letting anyone else have fun.
I didn't know that. I want to be seen as a Greedent player. I have no problem with it. Someone label me as a
you
Greedent.
don't.
No, you don't.
I think if that stigma was gone, you'd see a Greedent every single game in NA.
So
I think this character is way too strong.
is a Greedent player looked at like someone taking a granny shot at the free throw line or something? I mean,
Yes.
it's that bad? People hate Greedent that much?
It's so weird. So like if you think about it, like taking granny shots is like statistically better, right?
Mhm.
And it's way easier,
Yep.
but no one will do it because it makes them look stupid.
That's
That's how great
exactly
it is too. Yeah.
that's exactly
I'm pretty
right.
sure Greedent is the highest win rate in the game, if I'm not mistaken, according to
Not
They don't.
mine.
Tonight to be.
Not mine. Let me check. No, not mine.
He's like 56% win rate or something.
Yeah,
he has
it's
like
much
4% of
higher
everything
than
else.
anyone. But I think the biggest thing is like, you know, yeah, maybe we don't see it in NA a lot, but it is a main Pokemon in EU and JP. Like, it is going to be played almost every game. It's good in score comp. It's good in any comp. It's, you know, I know we're saying Luca is so broken, but it can replace Luca. It's the only Pokemon you could really say can replace Luca in top lane right now, and you feel great having it. It doesn't feel like a detriment to your team. Obviously, Nemesis has a ton of success with the Pokemon, and, you know, it shows why. Like, their Greedent play is some of the best in NA, and, you know, it's just always going to be a big Pokemon. Hopefully we see it more in NA.
Kai, I love that it's S tier on here, and I also love that this is gonna remove that stigma, and hopefully we get to see more Greedent in competitive play. That's really exciting. Faz, why don't you hit me with another defender?
Let's do Tree with the Trevenant.
Tree.
I think it is actually B tier.
No, stop.
They might
No.
not
No,
agree.
stop.
No.
Boo. Bad take.
Boo.
Boo.
I think it's not that bad. It's not that bad. You know, maybe it's most B tier because I feel like it
No,
can do its
that's
job.
too
No.
generous. Stop.
Okay, well,
I do want to hear your reasoning, Faz, but I can see that this is not where it's staying. But I want to hear you tell us a little bit about why you think it's so good, or so middle of the pack, I guess.
I think it's middle of the pack. I think there's stuff worse than it, like what we're probably going to talk about in a couple minutes here with Crustle and Lax, and there's obviously stuff better than it, which is every other defender.
Sure.
But I think it does its job. It creates a lot of space. It can obviously drag A9 out of her thing. It has good CC. I think its ultimate is probably the worst thing about it, but it can stall a lot of time because of its passive and like, you know, it always takes focus spin. But yeah, its ultimate just being the way it is just is kind of rough. If it had an ultimate, I actually think it could creep up there to A and stuff, but its ultimate is, like Sylveon's, one of the worst in the game.
Yeah, it is a very confusing ultimate. This Pokemon has a few confusing things. Pain Split's terrible. It's just one of the most confusing moves in the game. I think it's awful, awful, awful. Woodhammer at least has, you know, a nice double stun, and it stuns longer the lower its HP is, which is kind of cool. You get a lot of push from Horn Leech, and if you run Curse, you can kind of double up on that push. So we are seeing it a little bit competitively, mainly just by Nemesis, really, who has kind of found a good spot for it. But I'm surprised to see it so high. I think it's just that a team has figured out how to play it well. I still think it needs some buffs, but I'd love to hear from, how about you start, Rin? Where do you think Trevenant should be?
Who I either put it in the Venusaur tier or I put it in C tier. I don't know. Like I look in C tier and I think I'd rather have a Trevenant than most of those characters, but I would rather have all the characters in B tier than I would a Trevenant.
Yeah,
So
it's
hard
like
to
right
say.
in between those. That's why it's tough.
It might be the most B tier. What do you think, Mike?
I think it's C tier. I think it's one of those Pokemon that only looks passable because people don't have a lot of competitive experience against it. And that if people had more practice laning against it and more experience shutting it down, because it needs that level 5 to succeed, right? If you're a level 4 Trevenant, you don't feel good because you haven't evolved. I think if people got more used to being able to shut it down, it would look a lot worse really quickly. That's why I don't like it.
I think
To
that's
make an
a great
argument-
point. That I'd love to hear your thoughts here too, Faz. But one thing that you do notice is someone will pull a Pokemon out like Aegislash or something like that, or Trevenant, and because no one's used to playing against it, it does have this interesting advantage, whereas everyone knows how to play against Lucario. We've all played against 100 million Lucarios. Tell me what your thoughts, Faz.
My argument would be, I feel like most people would consider Mamoswine better, especially in this meta where it's has A9 to double up on the stun, but it suffers from exactly what Mike said about Trevenant, where the ultimate's not good, it's needs level 5, and it feels really bad when you don't have level 5. Like, I don't know, like, they're sort of the same Pokemon and have the same issues where they don't have an ultimate as well. So that's why it's like, if we're making the argument with Tree that he's C, like, I don't think Mamo is C. I think Mamo might be most B or B at least. I think, but it is the exact same, right?
Well, it's not the exact same, and you know it because
I knew
what
this
is
would
scarier?
split the team apart. I knew once we got Tree, the team would break up. Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
this is what's gonna do it.
Yeah.
But like a level 4 Swinub, isn't it?
Yeah,
Is much
Swinub.
scarier than a level 4 Phantom, right?
Yeah.
And it's not even close. Like, one of them you die to, the other one you're like, oh, I just procced his passive, right?
Mhm.
Like, they're absolutely nowhere close to the same thing. And I don't know. I feel like there is a reason why we don't see anyone even try to run Tree, right? Because it's not like Defender players. I mean, all of you are bored of the champions you play. That's what all of you say, right? All of you are looking for an excuse to try something new. And even in that scenario, we're not seeing Trevenant get play. That's a bad sign.
I mean, this tier list is going to have your stamp of approval on it. I can run far away from this and say I had nothing to do with it. So you will all have to live with this Pokemon in the mostly B tier. I think we
I'm
should.
throwing it in C tier. I
Wow!
changed my mind.
Oh no! I
Bye,
can't believe
Trevenant.
it. Bye,
Bye, Trevenant.
Trevenant. Sorry,
Yeah.
buddy. Great. I also really love Trev, but I really think it needs some buffs. Again, I'm not the competitive player here, but when I see it, I just think, oof, this Pokemon is rough. Let's talk about another defender. Do you want to hit us with one, Rin? We've got Blastoise, Crustle, Mamoswine, Slowbro, and Snorlax.
All right, we'll do Blastoise since I play a lot of that. Though honestly, I think Blastoise is kind of mislabeled. It should pretty much be an all-rounder. I think.
Yeah.
But we'll put Blastoise in either. Oof, I don't know if I should put it in A or S tier. I'll put it in A tier, I guess.
Ooh, A or S. Okay, so it's really high up there. I mean, obviously the rapid spin buff is really nice. It still has an amazing Unite move. It used to be crazy overpowered. Now it's just slightly crazily overpowered. Tell me about Blastoise.
Yeah, so you mentioned it. Blastoise has like one of the strongest Unite moves in the game. The only thing that counters it is Wiggly Unite, but even then, trading a Wiggly Unite for someone else's ult is pretty good, I think. Rapid Spin is one of the strongest skills in the game. Unstoppable, just running through everybody and chunking everybody's health is definitely not fair. Doubling your defenses for fun is also extremely not fair. The fact that he actually just gets the skill for free if you play him in jungle is kind of ridiculous. Even in Defender, I don't think he's terrible, but you have to play like differently, kind of like EU does. You don't get to play like straight up 1-1-3, I think. I don't know. This character is just very, very strong. He does a lot of damage. He is extremely tanky. He's hard to kill. His ult is an extremely extremely short cooldown, and his ult is broken.
Yeah, what a broken Unite move. I can't believe this is the state it's in after it is nerfed, and Mamoswine just jumps up and down 3 times. Mike, tell me a little bit about your thoughts on Blastoise.
I think Blastoise is S tier. Like,
Whoa!
I've seen it run successfully in top lane, successfully in jungle, successfully as a defender. Like, it is an incredibly strong Pokemon. It does something different in all those roles. We have it as jungler, it just spins on people and wins. You have it as top lane, it's an immovable object. Like, this character is insane.
Faz?
Yeah, I think I agree. It might actually be S because it can play 3 different roles, because it can have success in all 3 lanes. Rin being the jungle player, I can see him just saying his viability in jungle, but I've seen it have a ton of success top, and it could have success bottom. It's a tough lane, obviously. You're Squirtle for most of it, and that's not really a good state for you to be in. But its ultimate is so strong. Rapid Spin hurts a lot. It has a lot of CC, and it gets its ultimate back way too quickly, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want, I'll leave it S. I think it's an amazing Pokemon, and it's cool because, if you play someone like Decidueye and you see Blastoise, you just think, well, this is going to be horrible. It's just going to run right over here with as a spinning turtle shell. I can't do anything against this. So, yeah, I really love this Pokemon. What do you think, S or Egg?
I'm fine with this.
Whoa, S tier Blastoise. Mike, why don't you hit us with a Pokemon? We got Crustle, Mamo, Slowbro, and Snorlax.
Let's go with Crustle, who is D tier.
Whoa.
And unfortunately, it's not close. I don't think this is much of a surprise.
Honestly, I think it's worse than the other 2. I know we can't make another tier, but I think it is the most useless Pokemon in the game.
Legally, we can't make another tier.
Legally,
but
we cannot. But
it is one of the most useless ones in the game. Isn't it sad? What happened? Why did they take... It's so small, and I'm not saying it would have made it that much more viable. Why did they take away its critical hits? What was the point? What was the point of taking away the ability to crit on this Pokemon? It's just such a bizarre choice. I don't understand any of the choices around this Pokemon. I guess they didn't like it in score comp, maybe? They just wanted to hurt it a little? I don't know.
Was it even running score comp back then?
Maybe it wasn't.
Mainly because of bugs. Mainly because of the bug. Where, like,
I guess they ran it because of the bug. Maybe that's what it was.
Getting your ultimate back, having your ultimate up 100% of the time was probably the reason it was picked in score comp. But yeah.
This is probably me misremembering the situation, but I kind of remember some teams running a Zeraora, and then they'd have Crustle and Mime and like Lucario Talon or something. But I could be wrong. I think it was before Greedent was around. But again, it's possible I'm just remembering it wrong. All I know is, yes, Crustle is in a very weird position in the game. They released a Pokemon called Greedent that does everything Crustle does better. You'd rather have Greedent every day of the week. It's very odd what they did with this Pokemon.
Yeah, they fill the same role, but just completely different effectiveness.
Yeah. We've got a couple more left. Faz, do you want to give us either Mamo, Slowbro, or Snorlax?
We could do Mamo since I touched on it earlier. Maybe Mamo is B, most B. It's up to them. They'll argue me to death anyways. So we'll see.
Well, make your case, Faz. I'm here to defend you, even though I'll leave you out to dry in just a second.
It's good in aggressive lanes, so I actually consider it B, especially its synergy with the best attacker in the game right now. Obviously, it just does not have an ultimate. It's definitely in the classification of one of the worst ultimates in the game.
But it stomps three
times
on the ground. It stomps it 3 times. I don't see how that
Serena does that too without her ult.
That's true. Yeah. That's actually true. Serena does it just with its regular combo. Okay.
Yeah. The CC from the ult is there, I guess. You know, it knocks them up at the end, it slows them during, but yeah, it's a rough ultimate. But before ultimate, especially in lane, like you can play super aggressive with A9 and just fight people, and it feels kind of nice for that. But at the end of the day, Wiggly's just better at that, and then also has an ultimate, so it's tough to say. Like I said, maybe most B is more appropriate for it because it's not the best, but it definitely feels decent if you just want to fight all day with A9.
All right, there you go, guys. Now you get to rip him apart. Where do we actually want to put this?
I'm fine with B.
I'm joking, by the way.
Yeah, like, it's okay, you know?
Yeah.
I'm never, like, excited to come into lane with it, but, like, I've died to it, we've lost to it, we've gotten a lot of kills with it, like,
Chaos.
it exists.
Yeah.
But, like, why would you... You're never like, oh yay, we have a Mamoswine, I'm so glad we didn't take Wiggly this game, you know? Or like, I'm so glad we don't have the Blissey so we could run the Mamoswine.
Yeah, it's such a weird Pokemon. I think the way we are talking about it is not how you talk about a B tier Pokemon, but I agree. It's not terrible. It's just when I see it, I just think, oh, please don't run that. Run something else. Be Wiggly or be be Blissey. Just be something else in that bottom path.
Well, the thing is,
no. Well, of course,
a
there's
way to
another
play-
one that we haven't even put on the list that I would have, you know, 1,000,000 times more than this Pokemon. But yeah, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah.
There's a way to play bot lane where it's like, we're just going to try and do as much damage as possible and get as big of a lead as possible as fast as we can. And just like, that's how we're gonna win the game, through just like creating a deficit on the enemy team that they have to spend the rest of the game trying to catch back up in. And like, in that scenario, Mamo does fine, right? Like, again, it's not the strongest pick in the game, but Mamo can succeed in those areas. Now, mind you, it requires you to be better than the enemy team. And so you might say like, well, if you're already better, then you could win on something else. But like, it's a viable way of attempting to play the game that can work sometimes. And so I don't want to make it sound like, oh, Mamo's never successful.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah. Let's talk about someone who's very successful. Rin, where would you like to put Slowbro?
I agree. I am very successful. Oh, Slowbro.
I worded that wrong. Yeah, Rin's very successful. Where do you want to put Slowbro? Yeah.
I'm putting him in. Oof. I don't know if I want to put him in A or B tier.
Wow.
Let them take it over, actually.
I think it's A tier.
A tier.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised to hear even the thought of it heading down to B. I think it's just so solid. I feel like I see a lot of teams running it with a ton of success. But yeah, tell me about it, guys. What do you think about Slowbro?
In my opinion, Surf Plus is like one of the best abilities in the game. Obviously, it feels a lot worse right now because there's like Blissey and Wiggly in the meta, but obviously Wiggly has to use his ult to get their team out of it. I just think, you know, it's a strategy used against us a lot because we have a obviously insane jungle and Lucario player.
Who plays your
where-
jungle?
Rid.
Michael
Oh, right. Rid. Right. Okay.
Red
Yes.
plays
Very
jungle,
successful.
yeah.
Yes.
Very successful. It's a good strategy, like when you're against like these hyper carry players, to just slowbro ult them and you know, maybe remove them from the fight, maybe force early ults where the team's panicking to save that one player. The ultimate in competitive play just it has a lot of value, and its lane isn't the worst because it's ranged. So it can get out of lane, like, decently well. And yeah, I definitely think it's A. I definitely don't think it's B. It's definitely not S, though. It does not compare to Wiggly and Blissey, in my opinion, in just terms of pure value. But it definitely has a place.
Mike?
I think. Oh, go
Oh
ahead.
yeah, like, it's a fine Pokemon. Its lane against Hoopa is really weird because there's a lot of mind games of Water Gun to secure versus Astonish that cancels the Water Gun. And so, if you can outplay the Hoopa there, it gets a lot better, and if you can't, it gets a lot worse. But like, this is gonna sound kinda silly, but the fact that you can only stun one person with your ult is what holds it back. And I know there's not a way to buff that or change it in any way, otherwise it would be absurd. But like in certain metas where there's multiple threats on the enemy team, Slowbro ulting one just allows the rest of them to just feel free to go do the rest of go run over the fight, because all of your damage is onto the one carry that got stunned, so you have nothing to protect yourself from the rest of the other carries. So
Yeah, and Rin, your thoughts on Slowbro?
So as a jungler, even if I get Slowbro ulted, I don't know. I'm playing against a lot of Slowbros recently, and I never feel scared of them at any point in the game. Like at first Dread, I feel like they're fodder and they don't do anything. They basically make their team 4v5 it, and I get resets or whatever if I'm playing Greninja or something. I don't know. If I'm playing like, even if I'm playing Charizard and I get Slowbro ulted, I don't think I care because I'll never die in it. I can't think of the last time I've died to a Slowbro ult.
My argument for that is it's the only ultimate in the game that can just win your team zap immediately, and you constantly have to play against it. Like, if you miss position against Slowbro or away from your team's buddy barriers, like, let's say the Slowbro has backup, you could just die before zap and, like, they could wipe over your team, right?
Yeah, but that's misplaying against it. Like, we don't talk
but
about, like, hard
right,
misplaying.
the fact that you have to think differently against it, I feel like...
Well, I do think
really
differently when I
strong.
play against the Decidueye because he's gonna poke me out. I don't think that matters.
That's true. That's true. I just think it's an ultimate that is like could be game winning. Obviously, it might not be, but having a single target ability that just removes someone from the game potentially is pretty strong.
Also, it
It's very
cancels
scary to hit
Cramorant's Unite
Hoopa with
move,
it.
so there's that too.
True.
Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say that Slowbro ulting the enemy Hoopa is incredibly strong, and in the like quote unquote modern game might be the only way you can go back to like instantly winning zap with it. But like we've done it. I've seen teams do it. Like it's certainly not impossible to win games that way.
We got one more Pokemon here. Snorlax. Who would like to place it on the list?
C.
C.
Yeah.
What happened? What happened to Snorlax?
Power creep.
Yeah.
Does nothing. AFK.
It might be D tier, honestly.
It's that
No,
bad?
it's not D. No.
It's not as
No,
bad
it's
as
not that
Crustle. At least it has, you know, the slam secure.
But is it as bad as Mime? I would say so.
bad. No, I think it's better than mine.
Still has
Block has some
engage, and it's still
utility.
tanky. And yeah, like I've seen JP teams run Lax as their
Well, that's a
jump-
different
as their
meta, right? Because
defender.
they're playing
Oh, yeah.
against score comps, yeah.
I mean, if we're just considering our meta and like just considering the fact no one plays score comp, then yeah, it's probably like C, D, low C at least. But I definitely think it is a little bit better than Crustle and Mime because it can block people away from scoring in the score comp, and you know it has good value at like engaging and stuff.
Here's
in
a question:
team
would you
fights.
rather have a Trevenant or a Snorlax?
I'd rather have Tree. Yeah, that's why. You know, I said Tree should be higher, but here we are.
I'd rather
I
have a
think I'd rather
Cramorant,
have a
but it's just
Snorlax.
not any good. Yeah, that's an interesting question, Rin. I mean, I feel like Snorlax. It might be. I feel like it would be better, but you know what? Every Snorlax I play, I don't play competitive like you guys, so they're all running Yawn Flail. So I never want them on. Please get away from me. You're not doing anything.
Understandable.
Guys, this is the tier list you've put together. Before I, solidify it here, I want to see if there's anything you want to move around. This is your last chance.
I think it looks good.
I think it looks good. I mean, if we're not ordering the tiers,
No,
right?
not super intensely. No.
Yeah, if we're not doing that, then yeah, I think it looks good. I would honestly, like, I don't think I commented on it, but I think Azrael might be a D for me. I think it does that little compared to
Ooh.
those other Pokemon there. I actually feel like it has no place in the meta right now. Obviously, it's still to be bug fixed, buffed, maybe the stats go up, but yeah, it just feels so bad. Like, compared to Serena and Zorora and Gengar, I'd much rather have any of those. Sylveon too, like, yeah. It's really meh to me.
What do we think, guys?
I'd move Decidueye down, actually. That's my take. I'd move him down even more. Almost C tier.
Into the most B.
I'd move him down almost. I'm debating moving him to C. I'll be honest.
Whoa!
Yeah, I
I
would
think he's
support moving
trash.
him to C.
Whoa!
Trash.
Oh my god, I can't wait. All right, yeah, let's put him C. Let's do it. Awesome.
Here's what I'll say, Spragels. I think if we had any scrims against Nemesis and the way that they played at Decidueye, he would not have been allowed to get any of the stacks he got against us.
Well, we did have a scrim against Nemesis, but no spoilers.
Yeah, no
Well, I mean,
spoilers.
like,
You out of your
before
mind?
March.
How dare you even try to spoil this? You're crazy. You might be crazy right now, gentlemen.
But the,
Oh, go. Sorry, go ahead,
No
Fast.
spoilers for
Yeah.
AOs.
the problem with the Decidueye is the characters we have in, you know, S, A, and you know, even just Lucario just are very good against it, right? So it makes sense that it maybe goes down a bit. I think C is. I'd rather have Decidueye than Gardevoir. I'm pretty sure. So I don't know.
Nah, because I think Gardevoir fills certain niches against certain teams. Like the reason why I put Gardevoir there is because she's like good against certain team comps, and the Decidueye doesn't exist against the other team comps that would be good against, right?
Yeah.
Like, is it good against like the triple support Duraludon comp? Because that was the only time Decidueye was ever good against Duraludon. I don't think it is. No.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
then I think it's trash against every other meta jungler, like Greninja, Talonflame, Blastoise, Aegislash, Charizard. They all eat him alive.
It does shoot
Yeah.
arrows. I don't know how relevant that is, but I think it's something to mention. Gentlemen, this has been wonderful. I want to thank you all for giving me so much of your time. I'm sure it was more than you expected, but I really appreciate you sitting down and doing this with me. It's great to have a deep dive on what's going on with the competitive scene here. So there is your tier list put together by the March Finals champion, Blossom. Maybe by the time you're seeing this, depending on when you click on this video, they might have won the AOS Cup as well. I really appreciate it. You guys tell everyone where to check you out online and such. Or you can give your home address
Home address.
if you want.
Oh, one small caveat before we do that. Don't blame us when this tier list gets irrelevant or invalidated in like a day.
That's a good point. If there's a balance change in a day, I'm so sorry. I personally, I'm just gonna say it. I would be shocked if they do a balance update before AOS, but I've been wrong my whole life, so we'll see.
You can find me on Twitch and YouTube at either link / Rin, RHINNE.
Mike,
You can follow our team Twitter at Blossom Unite. That's because I don't really stream much, but I run the Twitter account, so anything you see from there, probably from me.
Faz.
And I'm Faz forward and then backwards, PHAZAHP on Twitch and Twitter. And me and Rin both have a Metafy if anyone wants coaching.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again for this. This was a little slice of heaven. I really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. Your competitive tier list. I love you very much. Goodbye. Mwah.